So if you wanted to times or minus or divide, 2 plus 2 equals 2 plus 2. It's the same thing as what you would do with 4. Okay. So we accept fundamentally that something which is identical should be treated equally.
Yeah.
Are men and women identical?
Not necessarily.
So should they be treated equally?
Of course.
In every sense?
We're talking about human rights.
No, but hold on.
One second.
Now let me rebrand the question.
Go on.
Sorry. Should they be treated absolutely equally?
Now, when we say absolutely equally, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about particular in what sense? I'm talking about on a human rights part, and I'm talking about in general as a possibility of living as human beings.
No, I'm saying, look, because you have to understand that when we talk about logical, this is almost a logical deduction, right?
It's a false logical deduction.
You can come forward and we can talk. Let me come. If we say, if we say that things which are identical should be treated equally.
Of course.
Let me give you an easy example, and this is something, by the way, to his credit, I refuted him last week, but this week I'm going to say something to his credit. Jordan Peterson, he mentions all the time, which is the idea of hierarchies. And I'll tell you something about it. You might not like him, but the idea is this: if you have a situation, you're going on a bus. This is my example. You're going on a bus. You see, when the red bus here, it opens its doors. You know what happens? If there's someone with a buggy or someone with a wheelchair, they put the ramp down so that they can be facilitated and go onto the thing. Now, if you look at most institutions now, it's actually it's encoded within the law that this disability access has to be available for disabled people. My question to you is, do you accept the fact that disabled peoples should have advantages over non-disabled peoples in the context of society?
This is where the argument gets really reductionist, because you then forget that disabled people have a condition that naturally shouldn't really exist, thus impairing them from living a normal life like a normal.
But that's aside the point.
No. It's actually the point.
Go on, tell me why.
We talk about human rights and we talk about equality. We talk about trying to bring about an equal amount of opportunity for everyone.
Okay, no problem.
It doesn't necessarily mean an equal
perfect
outcome.
Yes.
But right now we are talking about an equal sense of opportunity.
Perfect.
So when we're talking about disabled people and we're talking about people with certain conditions, even now when we're talking about men and women, we need to look back historically as to why men are built the way they are.
I'm happy with that.
And how environmental factors have added to the brute strength of men now and the ability to provide.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily.
I would say that there's more to do with biology with that.
Oh, there's a lot to do with evolutionary biology, because you need to go
depends
back.
on how you define it.
Well, you need to remember what we have now is a product of millions of years of evolution.
Okay.
And because of those millions of years of evolution,
so you're an evolutionist.
There's a complete separate between the men and the women, and we can see evolution. We can see evolution.
Can I ask you a question though? Herbert Spencer talked about social evolution. It's interesting because it links perfectly to the idea of hierarchies pre-existence. Whether you accept the theory of human evolution or not, if you're citing now what seems to be a Spencerian social evolution kind of rationale, I will say to you that, look, if you accept that for example, if you're a feminist or you believe in that there should be equality in the way that an absolute equality in everything that men and women do, then I could turn around and say to you, well, look at it from a Herbert Spencerian evolutionary perspective. If there is a patriarchy, then that's a natural patriarchy because it's the survival of the fitter. And who is the fitter? Now it's the man, because now he's put himself in a patriarchal position. If that's the case, then that's the natural order of things. So I would say to you, look, it depends on how you want to frame this anyways. Any epistemological way you want to root this, I'll say the same thing. If we're not exactly the same, the point is this, and this is exactly what Simone de Beauvoir, she wrote in her book in the second chapter of biology, and I always cite this because I reckon it's the point of demarcation when we talk about feminists, She acknowledges full well that there are biological differences between men and women.
Yeah, of course.
And she realizes that they're not the same, just like you do, right? But what she says is, despite the difference, there should be absolute equality. That's what she says. That's her argument. My question is, if you believe in the same thing, which seems to be that it is like that.
I've already distinguished it, so let's not put me in that same
No, but if you believe that despite the biological, physiological, psychological, emotional differences between men and women, there should be equality at every single level. The question is why?
What divides men and women? That's the problem. Because right now,
Say that again?
what divides men and women for you? Because right now, I've basically demonstrated just how environmental factors, climate change, or whatever you want to call it, all of the natural selection pressures are to blame for the way we are right now. The way we look, the way we eat, the way we drink, even our culture.
But that's aside the point.
It's absolutely all enticing. All enticing. You cannot reduce the argument to just simply men and women are different. Without taking
Why not?
Because you have to take into the reasons as to why they're different.
But even that's
So
not.
even if we're talking, even if we're talking, because this is a very important point. Because when we're talking about even now the difference between men and women, right? You need to remember the reason there's a patriarchal system is because before the working world and post-modern and post-industrial, whatever, there weren't safe working places for women. The death toll was high. You know, the work safety was not a thing. Human rights was not a thing. So for most people, it made sense for the woman who, if she falls pregnant, has 9 months of carrying a baby. So it makes no legitimate sense for her to be out there working in such dangerous conditions.
Okay.
If she's holding a child.
So
now that's a natural thing. That's a very natural thing.
Perfect.
We are now moving forward into the day and age where work safety is a lot better. Women have the opportunity to go into these workplaces, and they feel a lot safer to go into these workplaces.
Which ones? Because if you say
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Which
What's
one?
your name again?
Which one? Rajib.
Rajib. Sorry,
That's fair enough. No, we can get into the discussion about which decisions women choose, and we can get into that thing. But don't let that derail from the point that there are now places that women can work.
I don't disagree with that.
9 months pregnant, and it will not, right?
Yeah.
Disadvantage.
I'm not. My argument is not that they shouldn't work.
I understand,
Yeah.
but it should not. It's basically they can now work in a place that doesn't disadvantage the development of a child.
Okay,
right?
except
and the whole point is that it's not that we're different. We're working towards one entity, which is the child. Do you not agree?
Oh, no, I accept. I don't see that this is the question I asked you. Which I accept all the points you just said there. I don't think I disagree with that. But here, that points you just made, I agree with it totally. No problem. Yeah. And you should have prefaced it by saying, I would say, just to be a bit more meticulous in the wording, right? In many.
You've been attacked too much.
No. In many workplace environments, women now have an enhanced safety because obviously mining is not like that. The military is not like that. You know, in different construction. Even look how many women garbage cleaners there are comparative to men. The sewage women. So here, what we have to do is that. So when we talk about the thing, this is the primary question, all right? Forget about religion now. Let's put religion to the side, all right? Let's put religion to the side, okay? For the moment. Now I'm just going to cite the law of comparative advantage. If you're saying that what you would prefer in a society is, would you agree?
I haven't said anything.
Would you agree that what's preferred in society is those with the best particular, let's say for example, skills, are able to in a society premise with meritocracy, that they will be able to, for example, supply those particular skills to end users?
I have to disagree. This is again a very reductionist argument. It's the idea.
I said if it's premised on meritocracy.
It's the idea and the fallacy of, like, say, communism in particular, that if you have a certain group of people who are more skilled at this thing, that they should automatically go into this thing.
I think the communists would say the opposite.
Yeah. Well, they need to read. But in particular, we tend to funnel this idea that because men are better workers, then they should be all.
No, but I haven't. This is not what I've said.
I haven't said anything that you completely said that I've inferred. So
okay,
this
good.
is just inferred.
All right. Okay.
But when we're talking about, in particular, men going to certain places, you see now there's a backlash in men, right? Because they've been forced into these workplaces. They've been forced into these traditional roles, supposedly, right? And a lot of the time.
How do you define tradition?
Wait. Nowadays, providing, sheltering, whatever you want.
So it's only traditional because now you look, once again, it's anachronistic. See, look, I'm sorry, but I do feel a lot of the discussion that we're having now is rested upon this post-colonial narrative of now we're liberal, now we're feminist, now we're X, now we're Y, Z. We look back retrospectively and everything is traditional, everything, do you see?
This is the problem, and this is what I wanted to approach you in particular, is because right now, I'm not one of those guys, and this is why I said you have to separate those kind of scientific communities in particular.
Okay.
There are people, like you said, the eugenics, right? They thought that the size of your cranium basically determines the size of your brain and it determines the size of your intellect, right? They dropped that as soon as they found out the Arabs had larger cranium sizes on average, right? So you have a certain amount of people who want science to basically flatten them. But then you have a certain amount of people who want science, history and whatever to help better the situation that we are in. And even now, when we talk about, say, Arab societies and whatever, right? We talk about it in a patriarchal sense, right? I would not dramatize it to be that patriarchal. But right now, to be an Arab man, it is very convenient in comparison to being an Arab female. When we're talking about, in particular, let's talk about the right to marry and so on. So the reason that men have more of a polygamy entitlement or more of a polygamy claim is because women traditionally haven't had the ability to work. So the reason certain men in the past...
I don't know about that, because it depends on what kind of work we're talking about.
Again, the reason in the past certain men were able to marry more than one woman is because they could financially provide for them. It wasn't out of sexual